By the time the second quarter was half over, it didn't look like a tune-up or a close call. It looked like a statement. Green Bay wasn't just winning. They were imposing a new identity on the league. The first thing to understand about Thursday night is how complete the Packers' performance felt. 2 weeks into the season, they'd already taken apart two offenses that asked serious questions of the league last year: Detroit's balanced attack and Washington's high-flying schemes. Both nights looked different, and both nights sent the same message. This is no flash in the pan. This is a defense that hunts and an offense that has enough bite to keep the pressure on. Jordan Love's efficiency set the tone early. He didn't need to do anything cinematic, no desperation heaves, no risky improvisation, just steady command, smart reads, and a willingness to distribute. 2 90-plus yard touchdown drives in the first half aren't accidents. They're the product of calm execution. When your quarterback manages the game like that, and your lead back, Josh Jacobs, maintains the kind of consistent grind that forces defenses to pick their poison, you're doing the small things that build late-game advantage. Love was tidy, poised, and decisive. That's how you get to 27 points without leaning on fireworks. But as fun as the offense was, the real show was up front and on the edge. Micah Parsons isn't a novelty anymore. He's a force multiplier. On a third down, he ran a stunt that drew an illegal hands-to-the-face penalty and changed a drive's momentum. On another sequence, he was held and still finished with half a sack. Those plays don't just generate numbers, they reorganize blocking schemes for the whole offense. When tackles and guards have to account for Parsons' burst and rush plan, it tiles coverage windows for linebackers and frees up the interior to collapse pockets. That single disruptive presence makes everyone around him better. And the rotation behind him, Rashan Gary, Devontae Wyatt, Colby Wooden, Lucas Van Ness, was relentless. Together, they formed a front that didn't merely apply pressure, they ate space. Detroit's vaunted line in Week 1 was fended off. Washington's line in Week 2 was bullied into quick throws and predictable checkdowns. The stat that jumps off the box score, how few chunk plays Washington produced, understates the defensive narrative. This was a unit that dictated tempo from the line of scrimmage. When your run defense suffocates the ground game and your rush forces quarterbacks to operate inside a narrow lane, you don't just win, you control the story of the game. There's also something to be said about the timing of these performances. Parsons arrived on the eve of the regular season, traded in a whirlwind that could have left chemistry in tatters. Instead, what we saw on Thursday night was a quick assimilation. He didn't need plays to be called for him to shine. He simply imposed himself into the flow. That speaks to both his talent and the coaching staff's ability to permute schematic wrinkles fast. This is not the slow, awkward integration you sometimes expect when a star changes teams in late August. This was immediate impact. But no team is perfect, and the Packers game wasn't flawless. Their offense cooled in the second half, a pattern repeating from Week 1. Great morning, quieter afternoon. The playbook that works to build a lead doesn't always translate to sustained creativity when the opponent adjusts. That's a fixable problem. Rotation, tempo changes, and finding more consistent second half rhythm, but it remains important. Dominant defenses cover many sins, but Super Bowl contenders find ways to score even when the game plan runs thin. Green Bay will want to shore up those latter two quarters. And Washington's late quarter tightening exposed that any team with competent adjustments can force the Packers into longer possessions and grind. The Commanders carved out a touchdown and briefly pulled within range thanks to a more disciplined late plan. They moved the chains the way you must to stay alive. But Green Bay's response, a methodical drive ending in a Tucker Kraft touchdown, was the real clincher. When the opponent fights back and you answer with process, not panic, that's an organizational heartbeat. That drive sealed more than points. It sent a shared signal to the locker room. We close. What makes this early surge dangerous for the rest of the NFC is less the raw talent on the roster and more the way Green Bay appears to be constructing identity. The recipe is classic: defensive dominance at the point of attack, an offense that controls tempo, and a quarterback who limits mistakes. Teams with those three qualities don't just win games, they make opponents uncomfortable planning weeks in advance. The Packers are building a roster that is both intimidating and adaptable. That's the difference between good and great. You can't fix a team that makes you play their way. Now, a dose of perspective. We're only 2 games in. You don't crown seasons after week 2. The league is long and vaulting with injuries, matchups, and midseason pivots that rewrite narratives. But early indicators matter, especially when they consistently point in the same direction. Green Bay's 2 wins came against teams that ask different questions of you, and the Packers answered both with an astonishingly similar method. Run the ball when you need to, rush the passer relentlessly, and keep the quarterback comfortable. That's a template. The Trevon Diggs tweet, watching Parsons sack and saying this can't be real, isn't just a fan's stunned reaction. It's a microcosm of what this trade now represents. For Dallas fans, there's retroactive regret. For divisional opponents, there's a new layer of game planning complexity. But trades are not judged by headlines, they're judged by seasons. If Parsons stays healthy and the front holds, Green Bay didn't just win games, they improved their odds of turning snap advantages into playoff momentum. So what should you keep an eye on next? First, consistency. Can the Packers sustain this pressure across a full season, or will volume wear them down? Second, offensive adjustments. Can Love and coordinator keep the second half offense from settling into long, inefficient drives? Third, durability. Does this front rotate deeply enough to avoid collapse over a 17 or 18 game grind? If the answers are mostly yes, this team has a shot at more than headlines. For now, take the evening as a declaration. The Packers didn't just beat the Commanders. They dismantled the assumptions that were making Washington look invincible. They didn't simply win, they set the terms. And when a team starts setting terms this early, you notice. You can argue process versus pedigree, sample size versus spectacle, but you can't argue results. 2 dominant games, 1 front line that terrifies tackles, a quarterback who keeps mistakes minimal, and a back who grinds. That combination is the seed of something dangerous. If you want a short memory to hold on to from this night, it wasn't one play that defined the victory. It was the accumulation, the steady pressure, the disciplined drives, the answer when Washington fought back. That's how contenders are built, not in highlight reels, but in repeatable details worth mastering. That's one, Parsons shouted to Jordan Love at midfield. If the Packers keep collecting those ones, they won't need to explain themselves to anyone. Green Bay put on a clinic Thursday night, and it wasn't subtle. The Packers beat the Washington Commanders 27-18 in a game that felt more like a statement than a mere Week 2 win. From the opening whistle, Green Bay dominated the line of scrimmage, built 2 90-plus yard touchdown drives in the first half, and outgained Washington an eye-popping 243-43 before halftime. That level of control over a club that won 12 games and reached the NFC title game last year, that's not luck. That's a team clicking on both sides of the ball. Jordan Love was efficient and composed, moving the offense when it mattered and leaning on a steady rushing attack that included Josh Jacobs, who extended his scoring streak with another touchdown. The offense did stall at times in the second half, but when Washington threatened to make it interesting, Love engineered a clutch drive that put the game out of reach. Tucker Kraft's 8-yard touchdown gave Green Bay the 2-score cushion they needed to breathe easy. But the real story was the defense. Micah Parsons and the front 7 were relentless. Parsons' stunt pressure drew an illegal hands penalty and later yielded a half sack. Rashan Gary, Devontae Wyatt, Colby Wooden, and the young rotation consistently beat blocks and made life miserable for Jayden Daniels and the Commanders' run game. For long stretches, Washington couldn't get anything going on the ground. No play longer than 8 yards deep into the fourth quarter, and they finished with 1 first down in that dominant first half. If you're looking for early comparisons to storied Packers defenses of the past, the buzz is understandable. The group is already showing the kind of disruptive speed and depth opponents hate to face. There were hiccups. Green Bay surrendered a fourth-quarter touchdown, and their offense cooled after halftime, but they answered when it counted, constructing the drive that prevented any late drama. And the defense, after 2 impressive outings, may only get better as Parsons settles further into the scheme and the young pieces continue to grow together. 2 games don't make a dynasty, and it's too soon to canonize this roster alongside the greats. Still, beating 2 of the NFC's best offenses back-to-back is the kind of start that turns heads. The Packers look fast, physical, and well-coached. Opponents will now have to game plan with Micah Parsons as a primary threat, and that changes everything. Bottom line, Green Bay's balance and defensive dominance aren't an illusion. They're a real early season advantage. The league will take notice, but the real test comes over a full season. For now, the Packers have earned the right to be talked about as contenders, and they nailed the message with a convincing 27-18 win.